A meditative dialogue is a process of learning together, and it is a way of exploring life with a deep intention to understand, to go deeply into the fundamental questions of life. Because we are all confronted with various questions in our day-to-day living. The question could be, what is this whole life about? What we are doing here? Why do we get hurt? What is this suffering? What is happening in our relationships? Why my mind is not quiet? Why it is occupied all the time? Is there something beyond our mechanical way of living? Why we go through this boredom and then we escape from this boredom? Is there something beyond this mechanical way of living? What is truth? What is timeless? There could be any question. And from wherever we begin, this is the beauty of exploration, that it takes us to the whole of life. Because no question is in isolation. All questions are interconnected. So, in order to inquire deeply into these fundamental questions of life, I feel the first and foremost thing is to feel a sense of togetherness, that we are all working as friends, as fellow human beings, as fellow learners. There is no authority here. We are all friends. There is no hierarchy in this learning. So the first ground for this self-inquiry is to explore this deep sense of togetherness, a deep sense of affection. Because this inquiry is not something intellectual. Intellect may help in this inquiry, but that is not all of it. That is only a part of it. So since this inquiry is not entirely intellectual, it is something related to our existence. So we have to really begin from this ground of deep affection, deep togetherness. Otherwise, it will be a debate, intellectual debate, which does not go far. So there is a difference between a debate and a dialogue. Dialogue is a meditative process of entering into oneself, into life. And unless we feel this sense of togetherness, we won't be able to listen to each other. So in a dialogue, what is important is to find out what is true. And what is true, that is true for all of us. It is not that my truth is separate from your truth. Similarly, if there is something false, if there is something illusion, then that is also something universal. So that's why this meditative process of learning is something to discover together what is true and what is false. And when there is a deep sense of deep affection, we are able to listen to each other. Without love, we can't listen to each other. And listening is very essential part of this inquiry. And when we are listening deeply from a silent state of mind, we can observe, we can go deeply into any question. And in order to enter into a question, it is very important that we also watch if we are meeting that question from the ground of knowledge. Because knowledge belongs to the past. Knowledge has its place, as we said, intellect has its place, but it is not the whole of the inquiry. It is only part of the inquiry. Like I am using the language, English language, the knowledge helps me in it. Intellect is helping me in it, but this is not the whole of it. So that's why in order to touch the deeper dimensions of this inquiry, We have to step out of this ground of knowledge and meet a question afresh, anew, not from the ground of knowledge, but from a silent, quiet state of the mind. Then that question becomes a journey, a meditative journey, not our answering, because most of the answers come from the knowledge. That's why in this meditative inquiry, we allow a question to flower on its own and to look at that question with a sense of wonder. So, wonder and innocence, they are another essential aspect of this meditative inquiry. Can we enter into a question with a sense of deep curiosity, a deep wonder, a deep innocence, which is a sense of not knowingness? I really don't know. When I begin from this ground, then there are no limitations. The limitations come with the knowledge. I have this opinion about it, you have another opinion. So once the mind has seen the limitations of opinion, then we don't give so much importance to my opinion. I am ready to let go of it. So with these qualities, with these factors, we can enter into this meditative process of dialogue. And in this dialogue, there is no any goal that we have to reach somewhere. Our looking, listening in this very living moment, that is the inquiry. So there is no motive, there is no goal or a particular place to reach. It's an ongoing unfoldment, if I can say. So we are beginning with this text. It's a very beautiful text from the book called The Only Revolution. And I will read it slowly, and then we can have this our conversation, our dialogue together. It's a kind of a diary Krishnamurti has written, and he's saying that it's a part of the whole conversation. A young man has come to meet Krishnamurti. So Krishnamurti is writing, he was a young man full of hope, and the brutality of civilization had not yet touched him. What he wanted was to sit quiet, to be silent, made silent not only by the hills, but also by the quietness of his own urgency. Now this young man is saying to Krishnamurti, what part do I play in this world? What is my relationship to the whole existence, to the whole existing order? What is the meaning of this endless conflict? I have a love, we sleep together, and yet that is not the end. All this seems like a distant dream, fading and coming back. Throbbing one moment, meaningless the next. I have seen some of my friends taking drugs. They have become stupid, dull. Perhaps I too, even without drugs, will be made dull by the routine of life and the ache of my own loneliness. I don't count among these many millions of people. I shall go the way others have gone, never coming upon a jewel that is incorruptible, that can never be stolen away, that can never tarnish. So I thought I would come up here and talk to you, if you have the time. I am not asking for any answers to my questions. I am perturbed, though I am very young, I am already discouraged. I don't know what I want, but I do know that I must live a life that is very rich, that is full of meaning. I certainly don't want to enter some office and gradually become somebody in that shapeless, meaningless existence. I sometimes cry to myself and the loneliness. I sometimes cry to myself at the loneliness and the beauty of the distant stars. We sat quietly for some time, and the pine and the bamboo were caught in the breeze. Now Krishnamurti is writing, saying, the lark and the eagle in their flight leave no mark. The scientist leaves a mark, as do all specialists. You can follow them step by step and add more steps to what they have found and accumulated. And you know more or less where their accumulation is leading. But truth is not like that. It is really a pathless land. It may be at the next curve of the road or 1,000 miles away. You have to keep going, and then you will find it beside you. But if you stop and trace out a way for another to follow or a design for your own way of life, it will never come near you. Now that young man is saying, is this poetic or actual? Krishnamurti is responding, what do you think? For us, everything must be cut and dried so that we can do something practical with it, build something with it, worship it. You can bring a stick into the house, put it on a shelf, put a flower before it every day, and after some days, the stick will have a great deal of meaning. The mind can give meaning to anything, but the meaning it gives is meaningless. When one asks, what is the purpose of life? It is like worshipping that stick. The terrible thing is that the mind is always inventing new purposes, new meanings, new delights, and always destroying them. It is never quiet. A mind that is rich in its quietness never looks beyond what is. One must be both the eagle and the scientist, knowing well that the two can never meet. This does not mean that they are two separate things, both are necessary. But when the scientist wants to become the eagle, and when the eagle leaves its footprints, there is misery in the world. You are quite young. Don't ever lose your innocency and the vulnerability that it brings. That is the only treasure that man can have and must have. Here, Krishnamurti is pointing out something very important, that unless the mind is quiet, it is lost in searching, in inventing purposes. And in this whole process of seeking, inventing a path, some kind of system, mind is all the time busy. And it loses its innocency. And as Kay says, that this is the greatest treasure one can have, this innocency, which we all have, but because of maybe so many reasons, because of, I feel, a deep fear, because we are all the time seeking security, not only physically, but psychologically. And in this process, we all lose this beautiful quality of innocence. And without this innocence, mind can never be quiet, perhaps.